This is Hot Mic.
Hot Mic.
On the networks of WDAY.
WDAY.
Here's Dom Izzo. Time to chat some hockey.
Shot score! North Dakota wins!
The best college hockey writer in the country is on deck.
North Dakota, champions of the college hockey world.
Here's Brad Schlossman.
It is Friday at 10, which means Brad Schlossman joins us. UND is actually in my neck of the woods, Ithaca, New York, for a two-game set with the Cornell Big Red and Lina Rink, which is one of the great hockey rinks in this country. You're getting a full Central New York treatment here. You had 75 degrees yesterday and 45 by tomorrow. That's right to a T what the weather in November is like.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome yesterday walking around in a T-shirt, and I was seeing my friends in the Twin Cities send me pictures of a snowstorm there. So I fully enjoyed that. Yeah, it'll be a little bit chillier tomorrow, but I'm not going to complain about the 40s. This
is a series, frankly, that UND's only been out there one other time before. I'm glad they play because of how each of them, the history they have in their hockey programs. How did this come about, Brad, of them getting back on the schedule?
Yeah, you know, they played in 2008 and 2010, and now all of a sudden they decided to do it again and have one series at each place. Cornell does not typically like to do bye games where they're not going to go to one place and then not have the other team come back. So a lot of times teams don't want to come out to Ithaca, but UND has done that now a couple times. And this is actually a series that was originally supposed to be in 2020/2021. But of course, Cornell canceled their season that year. UND did not play any non-conference games. Then they backed it up 2 years. They were supposed to play 2 years ago. Cornell ended up having a conflict with the ECAC, so now it's finally happening this year. And Cornell has an absolutely loaded team this year for this series. Last year, Cornell was one goal away from the Frozen Four. Actually, each of the last 2 years, Cornell was. They lost two players off of last year's team, and one was the third-string goalie who never played a game. So they only lost from last year.
That's crazy when you look at that. You wrote about this yesterday that the travel party was a lot smaller than normal, and also the fact that I want to get into this first. They were allowed to wear their tracksuits on the plane for the first time. Well, give us the backstory on that.
Usually I've never seen that in 20 years, but the hotel was not sure that they were going to be able to check in before they went to practice, so they went straight to. They thought they were going to have to go straight to practice. They said just wear the tracksuits on the plane. Never had seen that, so you know how hockey people are with superstitions. If they might want to have a really good weekend this week, and then they might be wearing tracksuits again the next airplane flight. So, I found that kind of funny.
The amount of injuries, though, is racking up here right now.
Yeah, it is. It's weird for this early in the season for it to happen. So they're piling up. Cameron Berg is the big one. He is their first-line center. Berg, he was injured at the end of Saturday night against BU. He's unable to go, and that's a really tough one for a lot of reasons. Not only is he one of their best scorers, he's a terrific face-off man. He's a key on the power play. He's one of the older players. They're playing a Cornell team that has 10 seniors, most in college hockey. And you want some older players to go against a big, heavy, physical team like Cornell. He's one of the guys that excels in those type of games, and they don't have him. So that's a huge loss. They lost Bennett Smolik's not playing. He's a big, older, physical D-man. They're only upperclassmen on D. He's a guy that thrives in a series that's going to be like this weekend. So those are big losses for that. Tanner Komzak, another big D, he was injured at practice this week. He's out. Caleb Johnson, who's their third goaltender, he's also hurt right now too. So some really tough losses, especially with Berg and Smolik, because those are guys that are guys you want against a team like Cornell. So some other guys are going to have to find a way against a heavy physical team.
On this, from what you know, are these short-term injuries, or this could be out for a bit?
I get the sense that Berg will be back in not too much longer. He did. I did see him skating this week, so I think that's a good sign. Smolik was not skating this week, so I think that's not a great sign. I didn't see Komzak or Caleb skating, so Berg would, to me, be the closest because he was at least on the ice.
There's a Fargo connection as well here. Well, first there was one. Cody Heiskanen played for Cornell for a few years. Was a great defenseman for the Big Red. They got another now, former Force assistant Corey Lieberman is an assistant coach on the Cornell staff as well.
Yeah, it's his first year there after winning the Clark Cup with Fargo. And so this is Mike Schaefer's last year as the head coach for Cornell. So he's been there 30 years. Casey Jones is taking over next year. He came over from Clarkson to be the associate head coach and the coach in waiting. And then I assume Lieberman will move up to, the number 2 real quickly here. So that had to be part of the reason why he chose to come to Cornell, knowing the progression here that he's going to be the top assistant in a year.
I throw this out at you. I know you may not know the answer in this. Cornell is a member of the Ivy League, and obviously Ivy League hockey teams are allowed to play in the postseason. Basketball is. There's a story out of the Harvard Crimson this morning that there's some momentum to finally allow football to go into it. The academic part of this, Brad, is so unique. Give us what you know on the Ivy League, especially in hockey, and how it relates for them to be able to play in the postseason.
Yeah, they can play in the postseason in hockey, but they cannot play the first month of the season. So they do have limited games. I think everyone else plays 34-game schedules. Cornell and the Ivies play 29. This is Cornell's opener this weekend.
Wow.
So they have not played yet. And normally I would say that's probably an advantage for North Dakota that Cornell hasn't played yet. That being said, they took out one guy in their roster and plucked one of Chicago Steel's best players right into that spot and kept their lines exactly the same. So it's not like these guys all played together the entire year last year. So it's not like they have to get used to each other. So I think that might negate any advantage that UND has.
The Ivies, and I get it, the academic part is such a huge deal, but everybody's doing it. Basketball's done it, baseball does it, and football. They don't play early. Well, they start week 3 or 4 on the football schedule, but it just seems kind of antiquated now. If everybody's doing it, then let the football guys have a shot at it.
Yeah, and I mean, even like the hockey guys, I think they want to play more games, and in certain aspects, I think you almost kind of just roll your eyes a little bit.
Yeah.
So they're saying like, hey, academics is the big piece. Don't want the season to go too long. Well, guess what? Last week they were playing an exhibition. The week before they were playing a scrimmage. It's not like they're taking this time off. They're still at the rink. They're still practicing this whole time. They're playing some script. I agree with you. You just have it might be a little bit antiquated, and I have full confidence they can maintain their academics with a couple extra games.
And they're still getting, you just mentioned, they're still getting elite guys. It's not like they're at a recruiting disadvantage either.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they are. They're still getting some really good players. In a lot, some of the other Ivies have too. Harvard is, what was it, 2 years ago? I think Harvard might have had more NHL draft picks than any team in the country. If they didn't, they were like right there. Yeah. They had 13, 14 guys. So they are getting really good players to go there. It depends on the team. There are some NHL teams that would prefer their top players play a few more games than the Ivies. But it sure hasn't seemed to hurt recruiting for, some of the top programs, especially like Cornell and Harvard.
This weekend's games are both on ESPN Plus. For fans that are going to watch, I don't know. Is it the smallest rink that they're going to play in, or one of? I mean, Western Michigan doesn't have a big rink. Where is this one rank that UND is going to be in this weekend?
It's very similar to Lawson at Western Michigan, I would say. Bemidji State, probably a similar type. This is what, like 4,500 or so,
Yeah.
a little bit over 4,000 that will be there. I do know that they expect both games to be sold out and completely packed, so that should be a really good atmosphere in there. It's going to be a really big test, I think, for this team. It's a Cornell team that has aspirations to win a national title. It is a UND team that also has aspirations to win a national title. And I just think the atmosphere is going to be great. It's going to be a difficult game with the style Cornell plays. And if you can go to Liner Rink and have a really good weekend against a top team, then you have to start looking and say, hey, this is a team that can do some big things. If they struggle this weekend, then you have to look at it and say, here's some things that need to get cleaned up if you want a shot at winning the title.
It's back-to-back splits. I mean, you're playing some really good competition, Mankato and BU. Is there anything you have red flags about yet, or is it just the competition that they've played has been that good?
Yeah, and I thought that there are two losses. I thought UND was the better team in both those games. I did think UND probably stole one Friday night in Mankato. When I look at it, I would say UND's been the better team in 4 of the 5 that they've played so far this year. I think the challenge, I thought UND played really well against BU both games. I thought they looked like the better team both nights. They thrived, and that happened last year sometimes against teams that played wide open styles. UND took 10 of 12 points from Denver last year. They were great against Denver. It was CC that UND had trouble with, that really clogged things up and made offense difficult. Those were the teams that were a bigger challenge for UND. That's how Mankato plays. That's how Cornell is going to play. So that's what my question is coming into this weekend. You're playing against a team that plays a style where it's going to be low scoring. Offense is going to be tough to generate. These have been the teams that UND struggled with last year. Can UND find a way against this style of team? So I think this weekend is a really big test for this team.
Lastly, most important thing with the the tightness of the press box, is this you calm down on the liquids tonight before the game?
It's you're basically sitting in an aisle that has a desk in front of it.
Yes.
And so there's really not a lot of room. So you almost have to, if you're sitting in the aisle, everyone needs to file out, or else you're, stepping on people. It's definitely not like what we see in CHC, except for CC. Yep. CC's press box is unbelievably tight. But other than that, it's an interesting place to cover a game. I always say in some of these places, it would be annoying to do it every single game, but when you're only going for 2 and you get to experience something completely different and new, that's one of the fun parts about college hockey. To me, it's kind of like baseball. You know how baseball, every venue is a little different, right?
Exactly.
You go to the NHL and they're all the same. The NBA, they're all the same. Baseballs are unique. And college hockey is kind of like baseball, where every venue is a little bit different than the others. And you can go from Liner Rink, built in 1957, to the Ralph in a weekend. And it's fun to see. Both have their own charm.
The neat part, it's all bleachers there as well, right? There's no actual chair back seating.
Yeah, the whole thing's bleachers, so they'll pack them in.
It's going to be fantastic. Enjoy upstate New York, my man. I appreciate the time as always, and we'll talk to you next week, okay?
Will do. Thanks, Tom.
Brad Schlossman joining us from lovely Ithaca, New York. UND and Cornell, both games will be streamed on ESPN Plus this weekend. They're also, I believe, going to be picked up by SNY. So if you get SNY in your DirecTV or Dish Network, you'll be able to watch the UND games this weekend. It's a great rink. I've been there a couple of times. I was never allowed ever to go on campus because I'm not smart enough to go to an Ivy League school. We'll get to that story, because this is one I've been hammering forever about the Ivy League and football in the postseason. We'll do that after the break. But this is, again, murderer's row schedule for UND. We talked about it last week with BU. They split there. They scored 5 in the first period last Friday against BU, and then the Terriers got them the second night. Now we'll see here with a top rank, as Brad mentioned, Cornell has high hopes to win the whole thing, and then it's Duluth after that. So the hits just keep on coming. That's on the road as well next week. We'll break. We'll get a couple more emails in, and we'll update how things are going up at the Dome as well as the first section championship game is underway. Back on Hot Mic on this Friday morning after this.